Little wise, wise replies. Welcome to KidSay.
Hey! Welcome back to KidSay, the podcast where curious questions turn into awesome answers. Ari here, and today, we're diving deep. Not just into the ocean, but into one of the strangest questions you've probably never thought to ask, until now. Can fish drown? Wait, what? Fish live in water. How could they drown in the very thing they call home? Well, grab your snorkels and hold your breath. Just kidding, you can breathe normally. But we're about to find out what really goes on underwater. First off, what does it mean to drown? When we talk about drowning in humans, we mean that we can't get enough oxygen because our lungs fill with water instead of air. Our bodies need oxygen to survive, and we usually get it from breathing air into our lungs. But when you're underwater and breathe in water instead, oxygen doesn't get where it needs to go. That's drowning. So the real issue isn't the water itself. It's not getting enough oxygen. And guess what? Fish need oxygen too. How do fish breathe anyway? Fish don't have lungs like we do. Instead, they have gills. Gills are kind of like magic filters. They pull oxygen out of the water and send it into the fish's bloodstream so they can live and swim and be their fishy little selves. But here's the thing. If there's not enough oxygen in the water, fish can't breathe. Their gills still try to do their job, but there's just not enough oxygen to grab. And yep, when that happens, it's kind of like a fish is drowning. It can't breathe. So in the simplest terms, yes, fish can drown, in their own fishy way. So when does that happen? Fish can drown, or better said, suffocate, when things go wrong underwater. Let's look at a few examples. Polluted water. If the water is full of trash, chemicals, or harmful algae, oxygen levels can drop really low. Fish might gasp at the surface or float sideways, signs they're struggling to breathe. Overcrowded tanks. In fish tanks or ponds, too many fish and not enough fresh water equals low oxygen. That's why fish owners have bubblers and filters to keep the water oxygen-rich. Warm water. Hot water actually holds less oxygen than cold water. So during heat waves or in shallow lakes, fish might struggle more. Moving water versus still water. Rivers and oceans that keep flowing usually have more oxygen. But still, stagnant ponds can get stuffy fast. It's like the difference between being in a breezy room and a stuffy closet. Wait, can fish choke too? This one's wild. Yes, some fish can choke. Not on chewing gum, they don't chew. But if something too big gets stuck in their mouth or gills, it can block their ability to move water and get oxygen. For example, some fish try to eat a fish that's too big and get stuck with their mouths open like, Nature is weird. And sometimes fish bite off more than they can chew, literally. What about dolphins and whales? Great catch. Dolphins and whales can't drown like fish because they're not fish. They're mammals, just like us. That means they have lungs and need to come to the surface to breathe air. If they get stuck underwater and can't reach the surface, they really can drown in the way we usually mean. So even though they live in water, they're more like underwater campers, holding their breath between breaths. Fun facts to impress your friends. Fish don't drink water the way we do. Freshwater fish absorb water through their skin and gills. Saltwater fish actually drink a little to stay hydrated, like sipping salty soup. Some fish can survive with very little oxygen, like goldfish. They've evolved to survive in low oxygen ponds for longer than most. There's a fish called the lungfish, no joke, that actually can breathe air. It has both gills and lungs and can live out of water for months during dry seasons. Nature, always full of surprises. So, can fish drown? Technically, yes, but it's not exactly the same as humans. Fish can suffocate if there's not enough oxygen in the water. It can happen from pollution, heat, overpopulation, or injury. That's why clean, healthy water is just as important to them as clean air is for us. And hey, just because they're underwater doesn't mean they're invincible. Every living thing has its own way of breathing, and that makes the ocean even cooler, doesn't it? Thanks for splashing around with us on KidSay. From silly questions to smart answers, we're always glad you're curious. See you next time, same fishy channel, same curious crew. And remember, if you've got questions, KidSay is here to help turn little whys into wise replies. Today's answers were brought to you with help from National Geographic Kids, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and Smithsonian Ocean Education.
That's it for today's episode of KidSay. If something made you wonder, that's a good thing. Big questions, little thoughts, even the weird ones, we love them all. So if you're curious about anything, open the KidSpace Stories and Music app on iOS or Android and ask us. It's free, and it all starts with your question. Until next time, stay curious and keep asking.